including their take on events last night in Washington. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Authorities in the U.S. are treating an armed attack on a dinner in Washington last night as an assassination attempt on President Trump and other members of his administration. Secret Service agents bundled Mr. Trump and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, from their table at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, an event attended by hundreds of journalists, including the Sky News Washington team. It came as gunfire was heard outside the room where the dinner was taking place, and an officer was shot in the chest. A bulletproof vest meant he wasn't seriously hurt. A 31-year-old man was arrested. Officials say he'd written a note in which he referred to himself as friendly federal assassin. Following last night's events, Buckingham Palace said it would review security arrangements for the King and Queen's state visit this week before confirming tonight that the couple will still fly to the U.S. tomorrow. I'm joined throughout the next 2 hours by Annabelle and Stephen. We'll get their thoughts soon. But before that, here's tonight's first report from our U.S. correspondent, David Blevins, who was in the room at the Washington Hilton when the shooting began.
It is not the scene setter they wanted for the King and Queen's state visit. The top table didn't know it yet, but the gunman was already in the building. You can hear the shots being fired. Oblivious to the danger, the host was showing them a trick when Secret Service stormed the stage. The Vice President pulled from his chair. The President and First Lady evacuated. Armed agents piled onto the platform, their weapons drawn to eliminate any threat. Donald Trump hit the floor, normal protocol to remove him from the line of sight.
The president down directly in front of me, and we just look at each other for about 2 seconds. And my mind, obviously, this is like a huge adrenaline, just like, oh no, are we about to die?
Members of the cabinet were whisked to safety, agents forming human shields around them. We took cover beneath the tables, my colleague Mark Stone sheltering next to me.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, or certainly shots, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
And this was the scene outside the ballroom, the suspect detained on the ground. The president posted this picture of his arrest and video of the terror beforehand. He'd breached the security cordon, armed with a shotgun, handgun and several knives. One officer was shot during the altercation. His bulletproof vest saved his life. Safely back inside his bulletproof limo, they returned the president to the White House to reflect on what appears to have been the third attempt on his life.
I don't care how many people you have, how good they are. They can be the greatest people. You have the greatest security in history. If you have a whack job who's got a brain, but it's a little bit distorted or a lot distorted, they can make trouble.
This is the suspect. He's 31-year-old Cole Allen from California. They've searched his home outside Los Angeles and charged him with firearms and assault offences. The White House says the president and senior members of his administration were the intended target. It was a breathtaking breach of security and has prompted Buckingham Palace to review arrangements around what will be the first British state visit to the United States in nearly 20 years. Expect a ring of steel around the royal couple, including here on Capitol Hill, where King Charles will address both houses of Congress later this week.
We have to learn from what happened last night, and we will. But the first takeaway, the takeaway that it should be obvious, is that the system worked and that we stopped this suspect, that we stopped him as soon as he tried to do what he was trying to do. And the president was safe, his cabinet was safe, and every reporter and every member of the press and their guests were safe as well.
The Prime Minister has spoken to the President and First Lady on the phone. Keir Starmer said he was shocked by the scenes from the Washington Hilton overnight. Images now part of Trump's battle for a new ballroom at the White House. He may have dodged another bullet, but this president never misses an opportunity. David Blevins, Sky News, in Washington.
And tonight we've heard again from the president. He called Fox News to discuss his thoughts on the suspect.
And he had a lot of hatred in his heart for quite a while. It was a religious thing. It was strongly anti-Christian, and so he's got some big problems with the rest of his life. I hated a guy like this sick, bad person. I hated somebody like that changing the course of our country.
So as we've just heard from David, the suspect that President Trump is talking about there is 31-year-old Cole Allen, a master's graduate from California. Police say he referred to himself as friendly federal assassin. With more on what we know about him, here's Sky's Roland Manthorpe.
How did Cole Allen end up here? We spent the day going through his background online and looking at everything that we think he's written. These were his social media posts, apparently. And this is what we found. Born and raised in California, 10 years ago, Cole Allen was studying at Caltech, prestigious American university. We know from this that he's bright, he's technical, highly motivated, and here he is with his winning robotics team. They won in robot football. After leaving Caltech, he worked as a teaching assistant and a mechanical engineer. This is in LinkedIn. And he also made video games. Here, you can see, this was the game he made. Developer Cole Allen, publisher Cole Allen. Kind of tells you it's basically the video game equivalent of self-publishing. Didn't really go anywhere. But if you're looking for an insight in the game, well, there isn't really one. The game was an educational, chemistry-based game. Here, atoms and electrons fight each other. He worked as a private tutor, and in December 2024 was made Teacher of the Month. And this is what one of his students had to say about him.
He was just a pretty normal guy. He was a smart guy. Excuse me. You know, I don't know, he was a little quirky, but it's nothing that, you know, you definitely would not expect him to, I guess, you know, do the thing he did tonight.
If you're inferring from this that we don't really have the vital clue to tell us why he ended up where he did, well, yeah, you're kind of right. Normally, someone in the situation might have a criminal record or something else which shows up in federal records. But all we have for Cole Allen is this, a solitary $25 donation to the Harris campaign in 2024. And what we do know about him is that in 2025, he seems to have been thinking about the future. He got a master's in computer science, and here he is graduating. So what happened? How did he go from there to this? You know, President Trump has said there's a manifesto that he published just before doing this, so maybe we'll get the clues there.
Let's go back now to David, who is live for us in Washington. David, I'd love to hear more a little later about what it was like actually being in that room. But what we're hearing right now is that Cole Allen sent a note to his family before the attack. What else do we know?
Well, Cole Allen had no record. He was not on the radar of law enforcement at all. But we have learned that he sent a 1,000-word document to family and friends, 10 of them, in the minutes just leading up to the shooting. In that, he apologised for what he was about to do. He didn't name President Trump directly, but did criticise his policies and talk about targeting members of the administration. He also said he didn't expect to be forgiven, but signed off, as you say, cold force, friendly federal assassin. Allen, those are chilling words. The Department of Justice certainly believe that the president and senior figures within the Trump administration were his intended targets, and we're being told by the US Attorney General, Todd Blanche, that he is expected to appear in court for an arraignment hearing within the next 24 hours. So we may learn more at that point.
And David, of course, you were in the room when it happened. It was always going to be quite an interesting correspondence dinner anyway because of the president's relationship with reporters. But how was it actually being there?
Well, there was some tension, as you say, because this was the first time President Trump had attended the White House Correspondents Association dinner, and that created some tension in itself. At one moment, I was just talking to my 4 colleagues. The next, we were all lying on the floor beneath the table, sheltering in place and acutely aware. we were in the midst of an active shooter situation. It wasn't clear initially if the assailant was already in the ballroom or was still outside the door. It was clear that those heavily armed agents streaming across the stage were more than prepared to eliminate anyone who they perceived to be a threat to President Trump, to the First Lady or to Vice President J.D. Vance. We know that America has a very long history of gun violence and politics, so every time you cover an event where President Trump is appearing in a public space, you're aware of that danger, but I don't think anything can prepare you for the moment when you hear what you think are gunshots and see the President, First Lady and Vice President being bundled off stage and become aware that you have guns on either side of you. It really fueled a few moments of sheer terror for all of us.
David Blevins with the latest there from Washington. David, thank you. Let's get the thoughts now of Stephen and Annabelle. Annabelle, if I can start with you. What did you think when you first heard the news, I'm assuming sometime this morning?
Well, I'm loath to say, really, that it didn't come as a huge surprise. This is the third assassination attempt on Donald Trump in the space of 2 years. Unfortunately, it seems that we are in an era where political violence and incidents like this are becoming increasingly common. Now, yes, you can look back through US history and mention figures like JFK or Gerald Ford, and it's true that we have had idiosyncratic lone gunmen acting of their own accord in the past, but I just fear that with Donald Trump we have a US president who is widely unpopular, who does have a lot of enemies, and I would say that that's the first thought. The second was, how did the security services let this happen? How could somebody get within, they say, 60 to 100 feet of the US president at this dinner?
In a controlled environment. I mean, it's a hotel, it's a high-powered dinner, obviously, 2,000 plus people, and he managed to break through.
Yeah, although he was never in the room. Ultimately, Washington it's a capital city, but it's, for most of our viewers who in their minds they'll think of a capital city, they'll think of London or Paris. It's a small place. I think ultimately, for all of the reasons Annabelle sets out, and this is a country which has grown alarmingly used to political violence in recent years. A Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota who was assassinated. You had that attack on Nancy Pelosi's house, and also a country where guns are rife. Only this week, a man in Louisiana killed 8 children, which basically didn't even make the news in the United States. That's how I think Annabelle's exactly right. It's not really a surprising story in many ways. And I think unless you want to completely turn the whole of DC into a sort of perpetually militarised zone full of checkpoints, the shooter's always going to be close. But actually, I'm going to agree with Todd Blanche for possibly the first and last time in it. Actually, the American security services did their job. We saw that they got President and Vice President out remarkably quickly. They got the shooter without any loss of life or additional collateral damage. That's sort of the best you can hope for in a country which, in addition to its long-running issues with guns, this is a country where it's easier in many states to buy a gun than you can't have an open can of alcohol in the passenger seat of a car, but you can buy a gun, and where increasingly people are talking as if it's acceptable to settle political disputes through violence.
What did you make, Annabelle, or both of you, really, of his reaction, of Donald Trump's reaction? Because I was just talking to David Blevins there. This is the first time that Donald Trump attended one of these White House correspondents' dinners. Obvious tensions that we can sometimes see with what he calls mainstream media. What did you make of his press conference?
Well, I think it's fair to say that relations between Donald Trump and the media have not always been particularly cordial. At one point, he described the media as the enemy of the people, and this is, he boycotted the White House Correspondents' Dinner throughout his first administration. So we know that he was going to go into this sleeves rolled up, prepared for some sort of battle. I was actually quite struck by subsequently how calm and sanguine he seems to have been about the entire affair. But again, does that just suggest that he's become completely inured to there being attacks on his life?
People try to take his life. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect Annabelle's exactly right. He's probably quite inured to the fact is, he gets security briefings, he sees the terror threat. This is, as Annabelle says, the third go. He believes, as he's said on many occasions, that he's a man of destiny, and he knows that he's surrounded by what is the most impressive military and security apparatus the world has ever seen. So I think in order to do that job, you do sadly now live with the knowledge that it is part of life. And I think it's very hard to see how it's not going to continue to be part of American life for the foreseeable future, because now that the taboo against calling for violence in politics has been so thoroughly broken, and let's be clear, Donald Trump has been a key part of breaking that, given some of his own remarks. You know, I mean, he in 2016 suggested that some of the, as he called them, Second Amendment people, the amendment which gives you the right to bear arms, should do something about Hillary Clinton. But, you know, I have friends and family in the United States, and on my last 2 visits, just in the street, you know, like when you're in the shops, I heard passers-by make references to, oh, would someone do us a favour and kill this guy? And I think once you've got to a point as a politics where people say that and no one else remarks it, I think Keir Starmer is very unpopular. But I think if you said that on a crowded tube station, they might not say it to your face because it's London, but they would say very loudly in a stage whisper, you sound like a lunatic, mate. And I think once you've got to a point where that kind of thing is unremarkable, your politics are in a very toxic and dangerous place.
I think it's easy to forget how recent all of this is. You think back to when somebody rid me of this troublesome man, you know, millennium ago, and we become so desensitised to it all. And I was really taken aback by the fact that one of the first things that Donald Trump says was that this validated his decision to extend the ballroom off the White House so that they could ensure that there were areas where he could meet with the press, for instance, and they could guarantee, or all but guarantee, his security. And there wasn't a mention initially of America's extraordinarily lax gun laws, not to mention, as Stephen says, you know, the alacrity with which people seem to call for violence against their political opponents.
And of course, the timing all of this is important because, as we've heard, last night's incident happens just ahead of the King and Queen's state visit to the US to mark the 250th anniversary of American independence. Buckingham Palace said security was being reviewed ahead of Charles and Camilla's departure tomorrow, which they confirmed tonight would definitely still go ahead as planned. Well, Charlotte Leeming is at the palace for us. Charlotte, so they've now said that the trip will go ahead. But what a thing to happen, just over 24 hours before the King and Queen set off.
Yeah, exactly right, Barbara. You know, I think, you know, there's such uncertainty, wasn't there, earlier? Some jeopardy as well, these security concerns in the aftermath of that shocking incident in Washington. Will he, won't he? And that decision confirmed that he will be going this week to the US. And I think a big sense of relief from both sides of the Atlantic at this decision that's been made. We know that there's been emergency talks all day between the authorities and making sure that the King and Queen will be safe on that visit over the next few days. We know that these state visits are very tightly choreographed. The itinerary is very rigid, you know, the protocols in place. But I think they really needed to know that there will be no loopholes and no problems. We do understand, though, that there will be some minor operational adjustments to the programme. We're not exactly sure yet what those will be, but I do suspect that that could be where the King and Queen are on these engagements or events which involved members of the general public. That's when things aren't quite as much in control, but we will wait and see. But a little earlier this evening, the palace released this statement. They said, following discussions on both sides of the Atlantic through the day and acting on advice of government, we can confirm the visit by their Majesties will proceed as planned. The King and Queen are most grateful to all those who have worked at pace to ensure this remains the case and are looking forward to the visit getting underway tomorrow. So that confirmation tonight, and I think really, you know, this is a global event. Both sides of the Atlantic are really watching it. The rest of the world will be watching what happens on this visit. It's been publicised for so long, hasn't it? We know that Donald Trump is a huge fan of the monarchy, and even though things might have been a little bit frosty and tetchy between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer in recent weeks, he very much says he's looking forward to this visit and it will be a great event. And I think everyone else will be wondering if it will help heal relations between the two countries. But, you know, there's no doubt this has been a shocking and scary event, and the host and the visitors must indeed feel a little bit anxious tonight. But confirmation, it will go ahead. I think all parties hoping it will be a success and a positive outcome this week.
Charlotte Leeming with the latest from the palace. Charlotte, thank you. And back to our guests, Stephen, what impact do you think this is going to have, if any, on the state visit?
Very little, to be honest. I think ultimately the palace can't come out and say, look, guys, the royals are in more danger every time they board a plane or get on a helicopter than they are essentially on any state visit anywhere in the world, particularly where they will both be protected by the British security services, but within the protective umbrella of the American security apparatus, which is very impressive regardless of the various dysfunctions in their politics right now. So, yeah, it was always going to go ahead, but if you're the palace, you understandably can't come out at a point where people are nervous and go, guys, you're fretting over nothing. Not least because, you know, it's not particularly comforting to lots of people to be reminded that it is actually more risky to board an airplane than it is for them to walk around. And to be clear, it's not very risky to board an airplane either.
Yeah. Annabelle?
No, the journey to the airport's the most dangerous part of your flight overseas, isn't it? No, like Stephen, I wasn't altogether surprised. Donald Trump has come out and described the king as brave. I imagine that he would have felt such a strong sense of duty. You're talking about somebody who is a public figure, who is accustomed to being in the public eye, who will be cognizant of the risks associated with that. And I can't, for a moment, imagine that they would have ever seriously considered cancelling the trip altogether. Now, yes, there may be some adjustments to it. There was a quote, actually, from a palace source that I read. This must have been yesterday, before this incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they described the trip as not without complexities. And I thought that was sort of very stereotypical palace understatement. Now, there may be some more complex issues that they've got to deal with on the security side, but it's really, you know, how much is the king going to be able to soothe relations with Donald Trump after Keir Starmer and the US president's relationship has deteriorated in recent months.
It'll be very interesting to see as the visit happens in the coming week. First, though, another story to discuss now, a very different story. And history was made in both the men's and women's races at the London Marathon today. For the first time ever in a competitive race, a runner crossed the finish line less than 2 hours after he started. And it wasn't only the winner, the runner-up also managed it in his first ever marathon. And for good measure, the women's race also saw a new world record, as Emma Birchley now reports.
Neck and neck with just minutes to go. But it would be Kenya's Sebastian Sawe who'd crossed the line first to head straight into the history books, not only with a new world record, but with the first official sub-2 hour marathon ever.
What do you think it was about London today that made it so fast?
We had a strong team, and the pacers did their jobs well. And also the weather today was so favorable, and that's why it helps us, and we ran well today.
Did you set out to break the 2 hour barrier? Did you want to, was that the plan all along?
Yeah, I was ready because the pace was so fast, and I knew something good will come, and finally it comes.
London's not known for being fast.
On the day, the course, the conditions and the crowds helped make it happen. Even second-place Yomif Kajelcha from Ethiopia beat the 2 hour barrier. And this is first ever marathon.
It had been done once before in 2019, but only with the help of rotating pacemakers.
I've spoken to experts in the world of running who were adamant a few years ago that it was totally impossible, would never happen, and then Eliud Kipchoge did it in a carefully orchestrated time trial, I think 7 years ago now. But it's never been done in a bona fide race until today. And Sebastian Sawe has done it, and he did it by half a minute as well. Quite incredible.
The women were faster than ever too. Ethiopia's Tigista Sefa beating her own world record in her second consecutive London Marathon. But the records were being smashed this year long before anyone crossed the line, with more than 1 million people entering the ballot for a starting spot, the most applicants for a marathon ever.
Every one of the 59,000 taking part will have a story to tell of their 26.2 miles. But no one more so than the man who managed a feat once seen as simply unachievable. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Central London.
Annabelle and Stephen. Annabelle, it's pretty impressive.
It's absolutely remarkable because it isn't just that an athlete punched through the 2-hour mark. It isn't even actually just that 2 athletes today punched through the 2-hour mark, but the person who came third also beat the previous world record. So you've had a series of records being broken today at the London Marathon, which actually isn't considered or hasn't been considered to be the quickest. It was until this morning, Berlin. And when Kipchoge was able to break through 2 hours a few years ago, it was in 2019, it was thought that it would be a very long time, years, possibly decades, until somebody was able to do it under race conditions. And yet here we are just 7 years later. And the more you read about it, I think the more fascinating it is. The fact that his shoes weighed 97 grams and the amount of research and energy that had gone into that. The fact that Adidas, they've paid $50,000 this year towards the Athletics Integrity Unit to ensure that Salway was getting really regular testing because they wanted to make sure that it was absolutely legitimate. So it's just remarkable on so many fronts.
Yeah, it is just a remarkable story, particularly the sort of science and technology behind it. And yeah, the fact of this constant, oh, we think we can do this, so we need to make sure that we can point impeccably to how clean he is. It was, yeah, it's just a remarkable and quite inspiring story about, you know, what a talented athlete with a great scientific team behind him can accomplish.
And great that both the men's and the women's, you know, broke record here in London. So that's good. Now, coming up next, we'll take a first look at what's making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. Stay with us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. On the front of tomorrow's Guardian, Washington faces questions about political violence and gun control after shots were fired at a prestigious White House gala attended by Donald Trump. That story also on the front of the FT. U.S. authorities said yesterday that they believe the U.S. president was the target of the attack. The Sun has details about the alleged shooter, 31-year-old teacher Cole Allen. The shooting has plunged the upcoming King's state visit into crisis, says the Mirror. But King Charles and Queen Camilla will still visit the U.S. as planned, as reported on the front of the Express. That upcoming state visit also features on the front of the Metro. There are plans for tightened security for the King and Queen. The Eye also leading on the attack. The King and Queen will leave for America tomorrow. As sources tell the Daily Mail, the monarch is determined to keep calm and carry on. President Trump has praised the brave king for pressing on with his visit, reports The Times. And Donald Trump spoke to the media after the suspected assassination attempt, insisting it wouldn't have happened if the White House had a ballroom. That's the front of the Star. Well, let's discuss all these stories with Annabelle and Stephen. Let's start with the front page of The Guardian there, but really the story of, the suspected assassination attempt leading most of the papers and the front pages there. Washington in shock after Trump press gala shooting. Stephen, what have you made of the coverage of this in most of the papers?
Well, I think the really interesting thing is this, and this headline, and lots of headlines use words like shock, but actually, visibly, it was clearly very shocking for the people who were in the room itself, understandably. But I think visibly most people are not that shocked. As my colleague Ed Luce writes here, this is the third attempt on Donald Trump's life. This is a country in which gun violence is part of the background noise of social life. And I think this is probably one of the things where, for the average British person, we feel the most confused and the most alienated from the American mainstream, because we see a story like this and we go, how can you not want to change your gun laws? How can you not be worried about the path your politics is going down? And the fact that this stuff seems to happen and nothing seems to change, I think, is the thing which is continually quite surprising for all of us here.
And of course, I mean, here you had enormous security and possibly not enough, but, in a lot of schools that doesn't happen, and we know what the consequences are. Which takes us to the front page of the FT, where they have questions. They say questions mount over Trump's security lapses, is what they call them, Annabelle.
Well, yes, I mean, one of the reasons that the event took place at the Hilton is because it's considered to be one of the most secure hotels in Washington, and yet the gunman was able to get very close to the ballroom, which is shocking in and of itself because there were so many VIPs and officials and senior cabinet figures who were present, of course, the president himself as well. That the suspected shooter was a guest at the hotel does seem to be quite an obvious vulnerability, as well as the fact that attendees were saying that members of the public were able to access the building without going through security. So whilst in the moment, and these are split-second decisions, the security services seem to have done absolutely the right thing, and the gunman didn't get that close to the US president. There do nevertheless seem to have been, a series of perhaps oversights that have led to this situation.
I guess the details will be looked at, more closely in the coming days. But then there's the whole issue of the King and Queen's visit to the US. The timing obviously isn't great. Front page of the Mirror, they're going with King's US visit, security crisis. Now, Stephen, we know that the palace has said that the visit will go ahead. Possibly security tightened a little bit, we'll find out. But, I mean, it must have been a difficult day today for them.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think this is and we've all done this, this is a very tabloidy use of the word crisis, right? Because you can't go, royal security visit, unfazed and goes, look, there's nothing we've seen before. But ultimately, look, the royal security had to defend the royals during the height of the Troubles, when members of the royal family were targeted during that. They know that the US is a difficult security challenge. I, to be honest, think probably in private they will have made very few changes at all, because they know how to protect the royal family. They know what the security situation in the United States is like. They will continue, you know, the royals will be in more danger, you know, at a buffet from a loose fishbone than they will be, I think, on this US trip.
Do you agree with that, Annabelle?
Yes, I think that's right. And he will have British security there. He will have US security there. They will be on even more heightened alert than they were before this weekend as a consequence of what happened at the dinner. And, you know, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there's going to be some lone whack job, as Donald Trump described the gunman, suspected gunman. Nevertheless, you know, as Stephen says, you know, I don't doubt for a moment that this visit was going to go ahead, that they wouldn't seriously have considered cancelling it. And, you know, this is just... The hope will be that there will just be the relevant security there to ensure that they are.
I mean, the angle of the state visit is also front page of the Daily Mail. They've got the take, King keeps calm and carries on. So praising the King for going out, although, you know, we've just discussed he was probably always going to do that. Very interesting front page of the Times, though, which says Trump hails brave King for US visit after the shooting. Because take aside this whole shooting issue, this was always going to be a bit of a sensitive visit, you could say, not so much for the King. We know that Donald Trump respects him very much, but we know that perhaps Keir Starmer and Donald Trump haven't had the best few weeks or months recently since the attacks on Iran. So it's quite interesting hearing Donald Trump hailing the King as brave.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump really likes the royals. I mean, as do most people in the United States. Whenever I visit family there, someone hears my accent and the first thing they tell me is how much they like the royals. But, of course, in terms of the US-UK governmental relationship, it's in a really bad state because we have not joined his war in Iran. We're not going to join his war in Iran, and his war in Iran is not going any better, so he's not going to become any less annoyed with the US's usual allies for their, as he sees it, failure to join him in the mess.
Annabelle?
Well, you know, I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because they say that Donald Trump only, you know, understands strong men, and those are the ones that he respects. But the King is not going to go in with a strong man attitude. He's going to go in much more softly, more gently spoken, and yet he will command enormous respect from the US president. He does already, but there are a number of sensitive issues which, of course, could come up. The Falkland Islands, for instance, Jeffrey Epstein, possibly defence, NATO, you know, those sorts of absolutely fundamental, crucial issues. But the King is a pro. You know, he will go into that difficult, tense situation and he will find a way to soothe it and at least pause the rancour for 36, 72 hours before perhaps it starts up again and Trump is back on Truth Social posting whatever it is about Keir Starmer. But Stephen is right to say that relations between the US and UK government have deteriorated substantially over recent weeks. And that comes after Keir Starmer was able to cultivate actually a very positive, almost bromance with the US president, much to people's surprise. So, you know, it does feel like a great shame that that's been torpedoed and in such a short space of time.
One of the so-called Trump whisperers, although I'm not sure it's going very well for any of them. Let's look at another story, still front page of the Times, but this time, you know, we were talking about Keir Starmer, so closer to home. PM's plan to get referral to sleaze inquiry voted down. Stephen, what's this story about?
All right, so there is set to be a vote tomorrow called by the opposition to refer the Prime Minister to the parliamentary watchdog over what he has said did and didn't happen with the appointment of Peter Mandelson. Keir Starmer has said there was no pressure, which contradicts what Ollie Robbins said in his evidence, which he said that there was constant pressure. Also, to be honest, look, I think anyone who's worked in a big organisation, if you're told that the boss wants something, that is pressure. And if the boss has announced he's appointed someone on TV, or sorry, if the boss has announced he's appointed someone via a press release of saying, oh, Peter Mandelson is necessary, that is obviously pressure. The thing we don't know until tomorrow is when the government whips say this to Labour MPs, are they going to go, yeah, do you know what, sure, fine? Or are they going to do what Conservative MPs did when Boris Johnson was referred to had a face-to vote like this over Partygate and go, not defending that with my constituents? Now, I think the difference is that people were very angry about Partygate, whereas my impression when I travel the country is that people are annoyed and a bit bored by the Mandelson story. They essentially think Keir Starmer's not up to it, but they don't think that he's... there's no personal anger in the way that over Partygate there was this huge personal anger because people had sacrificed things during the pandemic and they felt that sacrifice wasn't shared. So I think the government will be able to get through this vote, but the big problem is that Keir Starmer can't unsay that remark over no pressure. And I just don't think that a reasonable definition of what pressure constitutes does not involve the appointment of Mandelson already being announced. And that, I think, is the point of procedure that's ultimately going to sink him.
And let's not forget that the Prime Minister was in hot water a week before that because he said that on the Tuesday evening he had been informed that Peter Mandelson had not been cleared by UK security vetting, and he did not take his first available opportunity to update Parliament as to the fact that he had previously misled them, albeit unknowingly. But I think that the more that you talk about this, the more you realise that it probably doesn't have cut through with many members of the British public, that they're more worried about the cost of living, more worried about getting doctors' appointments. They are, I think, cross that Peter Mandelson was appointed to be our man in Washington to begin with. But I think the issue for Keir Starmer is that he is so deeply unpopular within the party now that it won't necessarily take anything massive for them to think now's their chance to stage a coup. But it isn't like Partygate, because that was all about enforcing rules on everybody else that the government, well, Boris Johnson at least, wasn't adhering to himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the Mandelson appointment, there's a story in the Telegraph, your paper here, Annabelle, about reopening the case on Morgan McSweeney's phone. Of course, Morgan McSweeney, former Chief of Staff of Keir Starmer. So the story is going to, I mean, it was going to anyway, but we're going to hear from him, I believe, this week. So it's going to keep on rumbling this week.
Yes, he will be giving evidence to the Foreign Affairs Committee on Tuesday. So that'll be a very interesting session, and it'll be right before the House rises. So it'll be sort of the finisher after this Peter Mandelson saga has been rumbling on for some weeks. But no, the Met will be reopening this case on Morgan McSweeney's phone, which was stolen. And that meant that a lot of messages that may or may not have been exchanged between him and Peter Mandelson have therefore been lost, which in and of itself is very convenient. But there are also concerns that McSweeney, that Downing Street didn't do perhaps all they could in order to try and locate the phone and try and get it back.
All of this, of course, happening, you know, we've got a local election coming up, and there's a story in The Guardian. It's an investigation by The Guardian's Full Fact unit, and it's party flyers apparently misleading voters before May polls.
Yeah, right. So, look, we all, if we have local elections or devolved elections coming up, which most people this time do, this is the biggest set of local and devolved elections in this Parliament, you'll have if you're somewhere which is up for grabs, you'll have a forest worth of paper. I know I certainly have a forest worth of paper coming through my own letterbox, claiming, oh, only party here can beat so-and-so. And sometimes it might be a chart from the last election, which is fair enough. Sometimes it really is according to some entrails, or, you know, like, we asked 4 people on the street. Because the thing that all political parties know in local elections is that people understand our electoral system and they know that they want to do something with it. Mostly they either want to stop the opposition or punish the government, depending on their mood. And they're looking around for the most plausible way of doing it. And there have been a lot of, frankly, eyebrow-raising claims. My readers very kindly send me the leaflets and come through their doors as well. And, yeah, I have seen some truly absurd ones, which is now being picked up in this story. I do think, however, you've sort of got to accept that is part of the cut and thrust of politics.
20 seconds, Annabelle.
No, I think that's right. And also you notice how different areas will receive entirely different literature from one party to another area according to what they believe to be the issues that are most pertinent to residents. So there are all sorts of eyebrows that are raised around leaflets, but they're just part of our democracy.
OK, Annabelle, so we're going to have to leave it there. But while we're talking about politics, don't forget that our new political programme, The Cathy Newman Show, starts tomorrow at 7 p.m. Be sure to tune in. Now, coming up, we'll have all the sport. We'll show you how Coventry and head coach Frank Lampard celebrated winning the championship.
With respect, Minister, answer the question. It's you.
Hello and welcome. I'm Cathy Newman.
So could the outcome of these elections be manipulated? New me, new show, new furniture. Hard news needs a hard chair. I feel like I'm in therapy. Oh, there's room for two on this one. Do you think people will take me seriously with my feet up?
Sorry, madam, but we're closing now.
Oh, sorry. Sofa sorted. Let's get this show on the road.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but two women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Conor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents, based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism?
I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr Navarro,
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report, and this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Let's get the latest now from Sky Sports News and Chris.
After 20 years at Liverpool Football Club, I'll be leaving at the end of the season.
For generations, English football has stayed in England. The Premier League was their home. But things are changing.
Real Madrid have signed Jude Bellingham.
The greatest football club in the history of the game.
Visca el Barça. Fichar por un club como Real Madrid.
And action.
A record-breaking number are now playing in Europe's other 4 top leagues. And it's not just English players, it's the same for Scottish players, Welsh players and Republic of Ireland players too. And it's a range of ages, from academy graduates seeking a first-team opportunity to established stars playing in their prime. More and more are packing their bags. The question is, why?
It's obviously a massive year and a great opportunity to, create some history.
Could have been in England and just stayed all my life, but I want to go and, test myself.
It's a short career, you want to try and make the most of it.
I'm leaving London, I'm going to a city that I've never heard of before.
I didn't think twice, I thought, I want to go and experience it.
There is more to life, to football, than just England and the Premier League.
Love and appreciation is always good, always motivates you to succeed and leave a legacy.
No brainer for my career, I have to go here.
Be careful what you wish for sometimes.
I just felt like the time was right, I needed to be playing at the highest level, I needed to be playing Champions League.
For much of his career, Harry Kane was defined by one statistic that he couldn't escape. The narrative around England's captain became about trophies and not goals. So, in the summer of 2023, he made a statement. It's a move that's paid off, with the former Tottenham striker making breaking Bundesliga scoring records look easy. So what continues to motivate him?
To keep scoring goals, obviously, on a personal level, it's been my best start to a season in my career, so it shows me that I can keep improving, it shows me that I can keep getting better, and obviously 2026 is no different, and you add the World Cup to that in the summer as well. It's obviously a massive year and a great opportunity to create some history. 41 goals possible for you? Yeah, I think it's possible. Especially with the start I've had so far this year. Yeah, I mean, that record's an incredible record, and it's going to be hard to beat, I know that. But yeah, I never want to say no to these things. I always think it's great to try and have those ambitions.
Kane's impact was proof that success didn't require staying in England's spotlight. His trophy-winning exploits at Bayern Munich are being matched by another English superstar at another European giant. Jude Bellingham played an instrumental part in Real Madrid's Champions League triumph in 2024. And he became the 7th British player to win La Liga the same year, following the likes of Laurie Cunningham, who was the first to do it with Real Madrid. Steve Archibald won it with Barcelona. Steve McManaman and David Beckham also lifted the title with Real Madrid, while Gareth Bale did it an amazing 3 times. Kieran Trippier is also a La Liga winner, capping an incredible spell at Atletico Madrid.
My partner at the time was in Naples, so I was going to go to
And time now to take a quick look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
It will be mostly dry and settled this week, although more showery than recently, especially tomorrow and then on Friday. There'll be a mainly mild and fine, if rather cloudy start tomorrow, but there'll be showers in the north, mainly over northern Scotland, and perhaps the odd fog patch elsewhere. Northeastern Britain will see showers spreading from the north through the morning, while northwestern Scotland will see early showers fading. Most other places look dry with sunny spells, but Northern Ireland and the north of Ireland will be quite cloudy with the odd shower possible. Temperatures look much like today's. Northern, central and eastern England will see heavy, blustery and locally thundery showers developing quite widely during the afternoon, while Northern Ireland and Ireland will brighten. Expect little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
And coming up, all the very latest from Washington after a gunman opens fire at a journalists' dinner hosted by Donald Trump. The White House calls the attack an attempted assassination of the president.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
That's perfect.
Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter,
I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story.
the battle for number 10.
Sky News has been given exclusive access.
Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget.
Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Tonight on The Wrap, U.S. authorities confirmed Donald Trump was the likely target of a gun attack at a Washington dinner last night.